had to travel 5 hours, about 320 miles a day to say, hello, Bertie County. Hello. I think we can do better than that. Hello, Bertie County. Hello. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. My name is Ron Lewis. I'm with Foundation Forward. And it's my honor and my privilege to be here today to help in this ceremony as our organization gifts to you the Charters of Freedom. You're going to hear from our president and founder in just a little while, and he'll tell you the story of how all this came about. But I want to give a couple of personal observations. As a 30-year county manager in North Carolina, I don't know of any county in North Carolina that has had better county managers over the years than your county. But let me tell you, what makes good county managers are excellent county commissioners. Your Board of Commissioners, since the very first day, have welcomed Foundation Forward here to help you put in the Charters of Freedom. And we have a very special county commissioner. Anytime you have someone that's willing to step out and take a lead, things happen. They happen and they're fulfilled. Well, as a retired county manager, there's only one commissioner in North Carolina that could get me to come out of retirement. And she's sitting here, Commissioner Tammy Lee. Tammy, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And now let's get on with the program. We'd like to call on Dr. Gary Cordon to do the invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father which art in heaven, most holy and righteous is your name. You're separate and distinct from any and everything that we are capable of approaching, unless we do it through the faith in your shed blood of your Son, Jesus Christ. We cannot understand righteousness or right things apart from your holiness. You've given us wisdom and knowledge today as we come as a community. And when we come together, most often we see you carrying out a greater purpose and plan for our lives that transcends our individuality. It's evident that without you, we can do nothing. Thank you again for bringing us together in a theme that unifies rather than divides. You've implored our hearts by your Spirit to connect our past to our present and to our future, in hopes that beyond our abilities, what we do here today will inspire current and future leaders and citizens to walk in love, choosing to love, agreeing to disagree, and to stand together to protect the great liberties and freedoms born out of our praises and our worship and our community and our values and our appreciation for your love to protect our lives, homes, and communities and families today and going forward. We thank you for all of these supreme blessings being our honored guest at this ceremony. I ask in your Son, Jesus' name, amen.
Now you're in for a treat. I watched these young people rehearse just a little while ago, and they did a superb job. So now it's time to post the colors.
Let us all say pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's flash gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous light, for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag is still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee, for the pledge, and what a beautiful rendition of the national anthem by Bertie Evans. Was that beautiful? Absolutely beautiful. Now we're pleased to bring Scott Sawyer to the mic to recognize him. Say again. Thank you, Scott. That's why Bertie County's had such good county managers. Now, America the Beautiful by the Bertie High School Marching Band. It's been such a joy to hear them play, and go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon and happy Thursday. Today we are commemorating the founding documents for our democracy and this great republic. And it's very significant that we have representation from all levels of government in our nation. At the federal level, we have district staff from both the House of Representatives and the Senate, from G.K. Butterfield's office, from Senator Tom Tillis, and Senator Richard Burr. At the state level, we have Senator Erica Smith Ingram and Representative Howard Hunter. From the judicial area, we have Chief District Court Judge Brenda Branch and Resident Superior Court Judge Cy Grant. Locally, we have many of our town and municipal officials, and I get into trouble when I start naming names, but I'll do my best. And for me, most importantly, our county commissioners, Chairman John Trent, Vice Chairman Ernestine Bazemore, Commissioner Tammy Lee, Commissioner Ron Wesson, and Commissioner White was not able to be with us today. And yes, I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget any of my 5 commissioners. We also have with us Mayor Jim Hoggard, the Sheriff John Hawley, the Clerk of Superior Court Vasti James, Register of Deeds Annie Wilson. Representing our Board of Education, we have Dr. Stephen Hill, the Superintendent of Schools. We have the Bertie High School Junior ROTC. Let's give them another hand. And my favorite, since I grew up a band kid, the Bertie High School Falcon Marching Band. But most importantly, the citizens we serve as a government by the people and for the people. The most important people are those of you who came out to witness this event and to share in this event. We're grateful to the entire community and also those businesses represented today and the Chamber of Commerce. And again, I get in trouble when I single folks out, but there's some people here that really put a lot of time, I mean hard time, making this happen. Mr. Anthony Rasco, who is our maintenance director. I mean, every day, weekend. And we have a very special friend in Mr. Tim Phelps. He just wouldn't quit. And also Mr. Danny Jernigan. Again, thank you for coming out this afternoon.
Thank you, Scott. In just a moment, Gerald Thomas is going to speak to us, but before he does, I happen to think of a couple of things that I want to say. Number one, this is the first and only Charters of Freedom monument in eastern North Carolina. What a major accomplishment for Bertie County. At times, Commissioner Lee and I weren't sure we were going to be able to pull that off, but it actually happened. The actual hard truth of the matter is, this is the only monument east of the foothills of western North Carolina. Yeah. The next closest monument is about 315 miles from here. So, but we're what better place to have a monument though in beautiful Bertie County in eastern North Carolina, with the history that you have and the great leadership that you've had, and a signer, in fact, from Bertie County. There's only 3 signers, and one of those signers is William Blunt from Bertie County. So now we'll call Gerald Thomas to the podium. Gerald is a graduate of Bertie Senior High School. He was in the U.S. Army, served in the Army Security Agency and at the National Security Agency. He's also a graduate of East Carolina University. He's a certified CPA. He's retired senior executive of the United States government. He retired as Deputy Chief Financial Officer of the Millennial Challenge Corporation. Would you come forward, Gerald Thomas?
But today I'm not here for any of those things at all. I've written a number of texts or books about Bertie County history, war histories. One of them is on the Revolutionary War, and my comments today will be derived from that book. We're here today to dedicate these three important documents: Declaration of Independence, Constitution of the United States, and Bill of Rights, that showcase the philosophical, traditional, and political foundations on which this nation was formed. Obviously, there are other critical, impactful documents, but these were the first, as the speakers before me have already indicated. My remarks today are intended to convey to you a sense of the contributions of the citizens of Bertie County toward the effectuation of these documents more than 2 centuries ago. These documents are the products of a tumultuous period during the history of our country. The Revolutionary period, a quarter century in length, began about 1764 and continued until about 1789. Beginning of the period, opposition to British policies and laws arose in Massachusetts, primarily over laws passed by the Parliament that taxed the colonies without the colonies' consent or input. A number of laws were passed, but the most detested at the time was the Stamp Act of 1765, which detrimentally affected any individual in the colonies that purchased papers, carried on business transactions, or carried out any legal business. Protests, riots broke out through the colonies, including North Carolina. Within Bertie County, turmoil associated with the Stamp Act curtailed the recording of deeds because it was a legal document and you'd have to pay a tax to record your deeds, and also stopped the holding of quarterly court sessions from July 1765 to February 1766. Another detested act was the Quartering Act. The colonists had to house British soldiers and feed them, a tax in kind. In the spring of 1766, the British Parliament, after all the trouble they were having in the colonies, repealed the Stamp Act. However, immediately they passed the Declaratory Act, which decreed that the British Parliament and the King held total power and authority over all the colonies. In June 1767, Parliament passed the Townshend Act, which imposed new taxes on the colonies on all sorts of sundry items. The colonies were not granted any representation in Parliament until tensions began to smolder, particularly in New England, and by the early 1770s, there seemed to be no resolution. The Crown, King George III, and the British Parliament were heavy-handedly dealing with the colonies. Then in May 1773, Parliament passed the Tea Act. We are all products of the British Empire, and the English loved their tea. So when they passed the Tea Act, the Bostonians reacted as you might expect. In December 1776, they boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and threw tea overboard. Naturally, Parliament reacted. They passed the Coercive Act in March 1774, which effectively curtailed colonial commerce. They were putting a stranglehold on the colonies. Across the colonies, calls emanated for the convening of an intercolonial Congress to overcome the detrimental British measures. In North Carolina, on August 25, 1774, delegates convened the first provincial Congress. At Newbern, John Campbell, a prominent businessman and legislator of this county, represented Bertie. The delegates passed a number of resolutions, including the call for a colonies-wide Congress to meet in Philadelphia. On September 5, 1774, the First Continental Congress met in Philadelphia. 3 North Carolina leaders, Richard Caswell, William Hooper, and Joseph Hughes, attended. For 7 weeks, the delegates met and generated a list of colonial rights and grievances that was presented to King George III for him to address. The King ignored them. On April 3, 1775, North Carolina convened its second provincial Congress. At Newbern, John Campbell attended again, along with David Stanley and John Johnston. The delegates at that convention again appointed Caswell, Hughes, and Hooper to go back to the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia. In the meantime, the Royal Governor of North Carolina, Josiah Martin, abolished the North Carolina Assembly, and he fled to a British warship. Relations between the colonies and the mother country had reached a breaking point. On April 19th, On April 19th, 1775, British Army regulars, we're going to call these colors, British Army regulars and Massachusetts Minutemen at Lexington, Massachusetts confronted each other. Either a British soldier, a nervous British soldier, or a nervous Massachusetts Minuteman touched off the trigger. The Revolutionary War had begun. The colonies, disorganized, were now squaring off against the most formidable military power in the world. News of the commencement of the hostilities in Massachusetts reached Bertie County on May 4, 1776. War preparations were definitely needed to be made. Responsibility for assembling fighting forces fell to the Continental Congress, a quite informal body with only persuasive authority. Each colony had militia organizations called citizen soldiers. The people of the society would gather periodically and drill. They were not an organized army. In Bertie County, Colonel Thomas Whitmill was the colonel of the regiment. He was a former sheriff, a Tuscarora Indian commissioner, a legislator, and reportedly one of the wealthiest men in the county. I'll also say at that time in our history, militia regiments at the county level were not necessarily led by militarily minded men. Most often it was highly influential people of society. On August 20, 1775, North Carolina convened the third provincial congress at Hillsborough. Bertie County citizens, back in those days it was the white men who could vote, elected 11 delegates to go to Hillsborough. However, only 5 went. That Congress, they organized 1,000 troops across the province, 2 regiments of 500 men each. The Congress established 6 military districts. Bertie County was included in the Eaton district. As the year 1776 opened, the threat of war on North Carolina soil was prevalent. Loyalists, better known at the time as Tories, were forming to support King George III. In early February, Patriot leaders called upon Bertie County Minutemen to march along with Martin County militiamen to southeastern North Carolina to support a Patriot force that was getting ready to have battle with these Tories. Charles W. Jaycox of this county commanded the Bertie contingent, which included 46 members. The overall Patriot force, under the command of Colonel James Tories at Morris Creek Bridge, about 18 miles from Wilmington, on February 27, 1776. This was the opening battle of War Revolutionary in North Carolina. The Tories were thoroughly defeated. However, the Bertie boys and the Martin County boys didn't get there in time. They got there after the battle was over, so they went. I would like to read a quote from one of them. John Rose was a member of Jaycox's men, and he later recalled, "I entered the service of the United States as a minute militiaman in the year 1776. I was under the command of Captain Charles Jaycox. We marched from Windsor in Bertie County through the adjoining counties to Cross Creek, where an action had taken place between the Whigs and Tories before we reached. The Tories were defeated. We were ordered home and discharged. Low standing army, Minutemen called to serve." On April 4, 1776, the 4th Provincial Congress convened at Halifax. John Campbell, John Johnson, and Charles W. Jaycox, who had just led the Minutemen south, represented Bertie County. The Congress worked hard on addressing its military deficiencies. This included organizing district brigades and 6 North Carolina Army regiments. The Continental Congress, I said a while ago, was a persuasive body. They resolved that North Carolina should raise regiments, and North Carolina responded and did so. In Bertie County, Thomas Whitmill was confirmed as colonel. Thomas Pugh was appointed lieutenant colonel. James Moore and Arthur Brown were appointed as the majors of the regiment. Of particular importance was us in North Carolina. On April 12, 1776, the North Carolina Provincial Congress resolved that the province's delegates to the Continental Congress be empowered to concur with the delegates from the other provinces, the other colonies, to declare independency from Great Britain and to form alliances with other countries. In other words, form military and commercial alliances. Those measures, as most of us remember, hopefully, from our grade school history, was known as the Halifax Resolves. They were the first official act by an American colony calling for independence from Great Britain. However, other colonies soon followed Bertie County's lead, North Carolina's lead. The Provincial Congress, anticipating a British invasion of the Cape Fear-Wilmington area, and in response to resolutions by the Continental Congress, ordered 1,500 men to Wilmington. A company of Bertie County militia was detached and sent with that force. Captain Andrew Oliver commanded the unit, which included 61 officers and men. However, again, the Bertie boys are all excited to go. They got there, and maybe they knew the Bertie boys were there because the British warships pulled up their anchors and left. Now, I like the way I see it. They sailed to Charleston. They'd rather go fight South Carolinians. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, we're getting to the Declaration. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, members of the Continental Congress were drafting a document to sever the colony's ties with Great Britain. On July 4th, 1776, the Second Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, which announced that the 13 American colonies, then at war with the Kingdom of Great Britain, considered themselves newly independent, sovereign states and no longer subject to British rule. All it was a declaration. They still had to win a war. The gentleman a while ago stated, one of the signers, the three signers were William Hoover, Joseph Hughes of New Hanover County, and John Penn of Granville County. On one document ahead of himself. Note that the Declaration of Independence was for the Declaration to be achieved, for the independence to be achieved, the 13 states at a unified India had to defeat the British on the battlefield. And on the 4th of July, our company from Bertie County was still at Wilmington, watching for the British that had gone south. The Revolutionary War would last more than 7 years after the issuance of the Declaration of Independence, until September 3, 1783, when the United States and Great Britain formally signed a peace treaty in France. Throughout the war, Bertie County's sons served in significant numbers in the North Carolina Continental Line and in the detached companies of militia that were sent off to fight both in North Carolina and to the south in South Carolina and Georgia. However, many, if not most, of the records documenting the service of the North Carolina troops have been lost or destroyed. However, records are sufficiently available to confirm that the Bertie boys served both in the Northern Theater and the Southern Theater of the War. And as we heard and learned in school, at Valley Forge, Bertie County soldiers were with General Washington's army, and some died and are buried at Valley Forge. Following the formal conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the country was governed under the Articles of Confederation. The Articles had been approved in 1781 or developed in 1781, which were in essence the first Constitution of the United States. Under the Articles, the Confederation Congress could make decisions but lacked enforcement powers. Implementation of most decisions, including modification to the Articles themselves, required unanimous approval by all 13 state legislatures. Of particular note, the North Carolina legislature during its 1786-1787 session approved the calling of a convention to revise the Articles of Confederation. All leaders in North Carolina recognized that we needed a better constitution for this country. On February 21, 1787, the Confederation Congress called a convention of state delegates to meet at Philadelphia to propose a plan of government. The convention was solely to revise the Articles of Confederation, to render a federal constitution for governing and preserving the Union. The United States Constitution was completed September 17, 1787. 39 members signed it, including 3 from North Carolina, including William Blount, originally from Bertie County, who in the future later became the governor of the Southwest Territory, which was later Tennessee. The other two men that signed were Richard Dobbs Spake, Hugh Williamson. However, I keep throwing a lot of howevers in here, there's caveats. The document had to be ratified by the 13 states. Again, it was a document, but it had to be approved. Within North Carolina, ratification failed in 1788 as Federalists and Anti-Federalists could not resolve their differences over the former federal government. Does that sound familiar today? Republicans and Democrats. Ratification convention from Bertie County was attended by William Gray, William J. Dawson, John Johnson, Andrew Oliver, and David Turner. In November 1789, North Carolina held a second ratification convention. Bertie County's delegates to that one were Dawson again, John Johnson, Francis Pugh, David Stone, the future governor, and David Turner. As a result of what I would term political maneuvering, the Federalists prevailed and the state lawmakers ratified the Constitution on November 21, 1789. North Carolina was the 12th state to ratify the United States Constitution. The last to do so was Rhode Island in May 1790. On September 25, 1789, the first Congress of the United States proposed 12 amendments to the Constitution. The Bill of Rights, 12 proposed amendments. The document we're dedicating here today. 10 of the proposed amendments were ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures by December 15, 1791. The ratified articles, numbers 3 through 12, constitute the first 10 amendments to our Constitution. And as of today, there are a total of 27 amendments. In conclusion, Bertie County citizens, as Americans, are subject to and daily impacted by the provisions and influences of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, our charters of freedom, as they've been termed. And they are also, in my view, a product for the services and the sacrifices that our ancestors gave more than 200 years ago. I thank you for attending and inviting me to share my thoughts with you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, the gentleman who is largely responsible for gifting this monument to you folks is with us today. He's the most patriotic American that this old Marine and County manager's ever met. Ladies and gentlemen, Vance Patterson.
Oh, what a neat monument you all have set here. This is really special. They did a great job on it. We're going to brag about this one. My name is Vance Patterson. I'm a neighbor of yours from Burke County, over in western North Carolina, about halfway between Hickory and Asheville. I'm a father of 4, married 43 years to my wife, Mary Jo. I'm a manufacturer. I have a company that makes industrial fans. We actually make things out of metal, ship them across the country and around the world. Business is really good right now, which is why I'm able to be here today to dedicate this and that about which we're about to have happen here. I'm going to tell you a story. It lasts about 8 minutes. Then I'm going to give you a brief idea of what you're looking at here and a little bit of the vision I see of what's coming in the future. About 6 years ago, my wife and I were up in Washington, D.C., visiting with some congressmen and some of the organizations up there. And we had some free time, so we decided to go over to the National Archives because we'd never seen the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution before. Now, for you that have been there, you're kind of wandering down a hallway, looking at different exhibits, and then it opens up into this big room. You walk through these big bronze gates into this rotunda, and there are our founding documents on the other side. Declaration of Independence on the left, 4 pages of the Constitution in the middle, and Bill of Rights on the right. This is when I learned that these are called your charters of freedom. Now, one of the things I liked was once you get in the room, there's no lines. You just wander around looking at different exhibits, and when you get a chance, you step up and look at the documents. Now, I don't know about you, but the first time I looked at the Declaration of Independence, something our founding fathers had actually penned, and saw the names John Adams, I'm drawing a blank here, Benjamin Franklin, Rutledge, and the others, I just got goosebumps. And then when I got a chance to move over and look at the first page of the Constitution and saw the words, "We the people," I actually got a lump in my throat. It was really an emotional experience for me. When I moved over and looked at the Bill of Rights, as mentioned earlier, there's something you need to know about the Bill of Rights. There is no historical document of our Bill of Rights. What's on display up there is the first 12 amendments proposed in Congress, signed by John Adams. The first 2 were not ratified at the time. So the last 10 are your Bill of Rights and are contained in that document. Now, my wife likes to read just about everything. So while she's going and reading supporting documents, it gave me a chance to step back, and I just wanted to take everything in. I wanted to remember the feeling, the moment of being there. And 2 things occurred to me. First of all, that I'd probably never be there again, because it took me over 60 years to get there the first time. And second, that most people would probably never see these documents. Even though it's free and open to the public, there's just so much to do up in Washington. All the other monuments, the museums, the government buildings and all, that people just don't get a chance to get over to the National Archives. So when Mary Jo was done with her reading and everything, we left. Now, some of you may know, I ran for U.S. Congress in Western North Carolina in the 11th District back in 2012. And I tell people, I never studied so much in all my life, not in high school or college as when I was running for Congress. You see, we were having 2 and 3 debates a week sometimes over 17 counties. And they were asking questions about the environment and the immigration and the economy and the military and taxes and foreign governments and on and on. And to me, embarrassment is a tremendous motivator. I didn't want to be in front of a group of 150 people and not be able to address a subject for at least 2 minutes. So I studied evenings and weekends. Well, of course, one of the topics they asked about was education. And I didn't want to give the answer that everybody else was giving. So I did some research. And I learned that we had 2 founding fathers who were very big on education, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. These are the 2 that gave us the 3 basic levels of education. A primary level to teach our youth how to function in the world. That's where you get into reading, writing, and arithmetic. A secondary level to teach our youth how to survive in the world. And that's where you got into history and geography and some of the trades and the living languages. And then the 3rd level was the advanced level. And that's where you got into the arts, the professions, and what's known as a culture of virtue. Well, it's no surprise they were very big on civics and government. After all, they gave us the foundation for our government. They believed that in order to have a free and independent society, you must understand how government works. That you cannot control what you do not understand. Well, towards the end of my campaign, I remember Mary Jo and I were attending a National Day of Prayer service on the old Burke Courthouse Green. And towards the end of the service, the thought came to me, what if I could duplicate the experience I had up in Washington? The first time I saw these documents, what if I could bring that experience back to the citizens of Burke County? So I started getting excited about it, and when the service ended, I told Mary Jo about it. And we actually wandered around the courthouse a little bit, trying to pick out a possible setting if we did something like this. Well, later that year, after my campaign ended, there were 11 of us. I came in second. There was a runoff, and I came in second again. So I had some free time, and after I recovered from the campaign, I started working on a project. And it turned out to be an educational project. The project was to design and build a replica of the Charters of Freedom as exhibited in the National Archives, to put that in a central location in Burke County with high visibility, high foot traffic, and easy access for school children. After all, this was going to be an education project. So I started working on it, and it took 2 years to get this done. Earlier, I said I'd probably never be up in Washington again. Well, or back in the National Archives again. Well, that turned out to be kind of not so true. Because see, after we got approval for this, I had only seen this setting once. And there are no information online other than pictures. There's no dimensions, there's no prints or anything. We looked a lot. So the day after we got approval, Mary Jo and I got back in the car, went back up to Washington, walked into the National Archives, and now they won't let you just take out a measuring tape and start measuring a national treasure. So we had a plan. She went one way and I went another. And I stepped up at the end of the center display here and took 2 paces, and I was standing about in the middle of the document. So I knew it was about 12 feet long. At the same time, Mary Jo is walking over to the sides of the display, facing the crowd and standing there and marking on her body how far up the elevations are. So then we left, went back to the motel room, checked in, and we took the measurements. So while your display here may not be exactly what's up in the National Archives, keep in mind it's based on 2 paces of a short guy and 3 marks on my wife's body. All right, as I say, it took 2 years to get this done. But on July 2nd, 2014, we dedicated the first Charters of Freedom setting outside of Washington, D.C. Well, we enjoyed it so much that Mary Jo and I decided to do another one. And we gifted one to Cherokee County, the farthest west point in North Carolina, where Georgia and Tennessee come together, little town of Murphy. That was dedicated on September 17th, 2014, Constitution Day. We did another one, did a third one in downtown Asheville, Buncombe County. Then we set up a 501c3 called Foundation Forward to continue doing this. All right, rumors were starting that I was going to run for Congress again, because all 3 of these were in the 11th district. So, and I think my wife was getting a little nervous too. So we decided to go north. And we went up to Jacksonville, Illinois, Morgan County, where my wife grew up. That was where we put in the 4th one. The 5th one went in Indiana, where I went to high school, Howard County, Kokomo, Indiana. We then did the 6th one down in Columbia, South Carolina, just last year. That was a gift from all the employees at my company to the children and citizens of South Carolina. Every employee got their name on the plaque on the back of that monument. Some of them had tears in their eyes when they saw what was going to happen. Your setting here is well, no, we did one more. I'm sorry, we did a 7th one up in Fort Thomas, Kentucky this year, right across from Cincinnati. Yours is the 8th one to be set. And as Ron said earlier, it's the first one to be set on the East Coast. All right, let me tell you a little about your setting here. When I went to Hanover College up in Hanover, Indiana, I worked on a similar project, but I didn't ask for permission. But what I learned was, if you want to set a monument or a display to last, you put more underground than above ground. Your foundation here goes down 3 to 3.5 feet. It's reinforced solid poured concrete. It comes up into a core, a solid core with rebar. Again, reinforced poured concrete. That center core and foundation, without the brick, weighs over 38,000 pounds, over 19 tons. It's then covered with 4 inches of brick and mortar, and then the capstone goes on top. There are 6 documents on 1/4 inch etched bronze. Each document weighs over 60 pounds. It's then covered by 1/2 inch treated polycarbonate, which is very similar to bulletproof glass. It's unbreakable. Please don't try it. The symbol, the logo or emblem on the front is very special. I commissioned some artists around the country to come up with this. The eagle represents the Declaration of Independence. Proud, bold, defiant. The 7 stars above the eagle represent the 7 articles of our U.S. Constitution. The 10 stars under the eagle represent the first 10 amendments, our Bill of Rights. There are 2 plaques on the center setting, raised plaques, we the people and the signers of the U.S. Constitution. This is for children to do rubbings with pencil and paper. There's an information plaque on it that talks about the original documents up in Washington. These monuments, or these settings, are built to last 300 to 500 years if they're taken care of. Now, why are we doing this? Yes, it's very expensive, but it's more important than money. We believe that this gives us a direct association with our founding fathers by helping to protect what it is they gave this country. a government that is to serve and protect we the people. This is an education project. As I stated earlier, our founding fathers believed that you must understand how government works in order to protect our free and independent society. Thomas Jefferson in 1789 said, "Whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government." And James Madison, a 5'4" virtual rock star in his era, in 1822 wrote, "A people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power knowledge gives." Now you may have noticed, I've struggled as I've gone through this, not to call this a monument. This is a setting. The definition of a monument is a memorial honoring a person or event. This is not a memorial. This is an active, hands-on educational supplement to your school's curriculum. You wouldn't believe, when we're building these things, how many people come up and look at it and say, "That's the whole Constitution? Just 4 pages?" I say, "That's all there is to it. Just 4 pages. All of our laws and our government are based on those 4 pages." You wouldn't believe how many people don't know that the first 10 amendments are our Bill of Rights. That the First Amendment, that guarantees the right of free speech, the right of religion, the right to assemble, the right to petition our government, it's only 47 words long. And that the Second Amendment, which guarantees the right to keep and bear arms and raise a militia, it's only 27 words long. How can you not understand 27 words? Imagine, if you will, school teachers bringing their 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classes down here on annual field trips to spend time learning a little about our founding documents, our founding fathers, how government is supposed to work, a little about state and local government, and our local heroes. Commissioner Joe Belcher up in Buncombe County took a group of 5th graders out last March and spent time with them. There's a picture of them on the back of your brochure there. Those are the 5th graders. They just latched onto this. They loved the program. Commissioner Belcher was amazed at how interested they were in it. Those 5th graders know more about our government, our founding fathers, and our founding documents than most people in the United States right now, just for that one field trip. Now, I know money is tight, and we do have a program. If you have problems with gas money or something like that, let us know to get your students out here. We can help with that, so just let us know. There are 3,142 counties, boroughs, parishes, independent cities, census zones, and the District of Columbia in the United States. Our goal is to set as many settings as possible in those communities over the next 10 years. Our hope is that future leaders will come from communities that have their own settings like this, that they no longer will talk about the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights in Washington, but they'll talk about their Constitution and their Bill of Rights, the ones they grew up with, right here in Bertie County. That's my story and a little of my vision. Again, I am so proud of you all for being here for this dedication. Thank you.
Chairman Trent, would you come forward, please?
Chairman Trent, this Charters of Freedom setting, located on the grounds of Historic Courthouse in Windsor, North Carolina, is hereby gifted from Foundation Forward Incorporated of North Carolina to the children and citizens of Bertie County. All rights, responsibilities, and care for this setting, displaying the Declaration of Independence, the United States Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, are hereby transferred to Bertie County this day, August 24, 2017. Thank you, sir.
On behalf of Bertie County, and on behalf of all the county commissioners and the citizens of Bertie County, we thank the Charters of Freedom. We thank this collision course, as I call it, as the remodeling of this courthouse that started 3.5 years from the outside to the inside from 1887 to 2017. We are now in the completion phases of the interior of this courthouse, remodeling the moldings, the flooring, the whole 9 yards to establish what it is. You need to thank every county commissioner that serves on this board for putting forth the effort, the movement, finding the funds to make this county proud to what we have. And again, I would like to thank for these monuments, because this was a collision course of success, as I see it. A collision course of success. Because what has been done here has been done by the people of Bertie County to make this an everlasting and loving and friendship monument to our students and everybody that lives and resides here in Bertie County. Thank you.
All right, we've got just 2 more things to do real quickly. Y'all have noticed over here about the sign up for the time capsule. On the back of the center monument or center setting is a vault. In that vault will be a time capsule. In the time capsule will be letters from commissioners, one from probably the veterans group, some from the people who worked on the setting, school administration. Of course, there'll be one from our group. We don't read any of these letters when they come in. They are stamped and sealed. They're on archival paper. So we do ask people that write these letters, please don't put anything in there that's going to make us look silly in the future. The vault will be sealed. We'll also put memorabilia from the era. It will be sealed and not opened until September 17th, 2087. That's the 300th anniversary of our U.S. Constitution. All vaults will be opened that same day. So it should be a pretty interesting day around the country. So again, be sure and sign up on the sheets over here, because all those names will go in the vault and be read in the future. Also, I will be giving the combination of the safe to Chairman Trent. So if any of you are here September 17, 2087, and there's a problem opening the safe, you know who had the combination last.
Please feel free to pick me up.
All right, we're going to do a cannon salute. As a closing, I've got a drummer out here, Jarquez Deloche. Is that right? Okay. He's pretty nervous standing out there right now. I knew I wanted to do a cannon salute, but I knew that 21 cannon salute would be too much. So, again, I did some research, and this being an education project, I learned that the cannon salute started back in the 1600s. When ships would come into port, the port wouldn't know where the ship was hostile or not, so the ship would turn its guns to sea and discharge them. Well, this did 2 things. First of all, anytime you discharge a weapon, you weaken your position. So this showed that they were no threat to the fort. Second, it showed respect. And the fort, having more guns, more powder, would answer 3 in kind. So that's where you would get your 21 gun salute. So again, I knew that 21 was too much. And then I remembered I've done business over in Scotland, and for you all that have been to Edinburgh, you know they've got a gun that marks the time of the day. You see, the story is the Scottish, like the way the British marked the time of day, at noon, the castle in Britain, in London, would fire 12 rounds, and all the ships and shop owners could set their clocks to 12 noon. Well, the Scottish, being Scottish, reasoned, why shoot 12 rounds at noon when we could wait 1 hour and do the same thing? So every day at 1 o'clock, a howitzer in the old fort goes off into Edinburgh to mark the time of day. So I knew my number was somewhere between 1 and 21. And I decided on 7. First of all, for historic reasons, and second, because there are 7 articles in our U.S. Constitution. We're going to fire 1 round for each article. Are my cannoneers ready? All right, drum roll, please. Article 1 defines the legislative branch, composed of the House of Representatives and the Senate. It describes their powers and workings. Article 2 defines the executive branch, the qualifications for president and vice president, their powers, duties, and means of removal from office. Article 3 sets up the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, and the court system, protects the right of trial by jury, and defines treason. Article 4 regulates the state's powers and their interaction with the federal government. Article 5 outlines the process of amending the United States Constitution. Article 6 sets up the status of the United States Constitution as the supreme law of the land, to which all leaders, including the legislative, executive, and judicial, must be loyal. Article 7 addresses the ratification and declares that the United States Constitution should take effect if 9 out of 13 states ratify. Children and citizens of Bertie County, I give you your charters of freedom.
We would like Pastor Bobby Stroger to come forward. Thank you, Pastor.
Let's pray together as we close. Father, we thank you for this great day you've given us. Father, we thank you for these founding documents. And God, I pray that for the duration of our nation that we would genuinely be we the people. I pray that we would be one nation under God. Father, I pray that we would put aside our differences in order to maintain unity. And Father, I thank you especially, not just from the freedom from the British that you gave us, but the freedom from sin that you gave us in your Savior, Jesus Christ. So Father, we're forever grateful for all you've done for us. We treasure these documents. We treasure you. And Father, we pray that you would bless this food that we're about to receive. And Father, we pray your blessings upon everyone here. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. At this time, you're dismissed, but there is food and refreshments in the commissioner's room for anyone who would like to stick around.
My grandson is in the Navy. He's in SEAL training. He told me I was in the Army. He's doing hell with this week.